But when I looked at Oklahoma and Texas schedule, I'm going to keep it a buck. It ain't as bad as y'all think it is. First off, OU leaves the state only 3 times this season. 3 times. They play Tulsa in Tulsa, which is in Oklahoma, and then they go to Oklahoma State. And everything else, here at the crib, well, they go to Dallas. We'll say the Red River in the middle was technically in Dallas. So they leave the state 4 times, but only 3 actual road games.
Dallas, Oklahoma. Let's just be honest with you.
It's Dallas is Southern Oklahoma. We claim that. We own that now.
We claim that.
Fair. So,
let's go! Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. It is finally scheduled day, Sooner fans. I have a couple of guys here to help me break down the Big 12 schedule as a whole, and particularly for Oklahoma, Texas, and the boys up at Okie Light. So welcome into the show, my boys Jay and Chris. How's it going, fellas? Jay and Chris. Jay is from Unfair Sports. Chris is the Horns Down podcast. We'll throw those down right now. Where you at, Chris? Man, we're in the middle of the whole thing, bro. Come on.
You know what Chris be doing?
Yeah. What's up? What's up, fellas? How y'all doing today?
What's going on?
Yeah, doing good, bro. Doing good. Chill day. Got to stay home. Everybody's safe. Hopefully everybody else out there is safe. Great news with what we're going to be talking about here soon for the student boys. To be honest with you, I'm just going to say that get your optimistic hats out, get your optimistic pants out as well. It's looking pretty damn good.
We're going to do some sunshine pumping.
Yeah. Let's get some hopes up tonight. You know.
Hey man, I am okay with that. Welcome to the show, Jay. Appreciate having you on again. I didn't get to see your video yet, but folks, make sure that you get on there. He's already got his breakdown as well, but we're gonna make him break it down again here for us.
Oh yeah.
So what's your initial thoughts, fellas, as far as the overall schedule? I know everybody was talking a lot about Oklahoma, Texas getting kind of screwed. So it didn't really look like it. Initial looks, that's not really where I'm at. So let me know.
So I'll lead us off on this one. And I thought it was funny when people were saying that both got screwed. Now, I guess you could say the tough part about Texas schedule is they got Alabama, right? You know, they traveled to Alabama, but they had Alabama last year. So that's expected. Right. That's the toughest, part of their schedule probably per se. But when I looked at Oklahoma and Texas schedule, I'm going to keep it a buck. It ain't as bad as y'all think it is. First off, OU leaves the state only 3 times this season. 3 times. Right. They play Tulsa in Tulsa, which is in Oklahoma, and then they go to Oklahoma State. And everything else, here at the crib, well, they go to Dallas. We'll say the Red River in the middle was technically in Dallas. So they leave the state 4 times, but only 3 actual road games.
Hey, right. Dallas, Oklahoma. Let's just be honest with you.
It's Dallas is Southern Oklahoma. We claim that. We own that now.
We claim that.
Fair. So my point is, though, going to Lawrence, going up to Cincinnati, and then going out to Provo, that's really the only 3 times that Oklahoma's on a true road game this season. That's pretty impressive. Texas, they leave the state of Texas, twice this season? Twice. Look at the schedule. They go to Tuscaloosa, and then they go to Ames, Iowa. That's it. Every other game is in the state of Texas. They're not going anywhere.
Wow.
Kind of a favorable schedule if you really think about it.
Right. They don't have to make the Provo trip. They don't have to go to Cincy. They don't even have to go to Florida. Wow.
Exactly.
But that's not the point, Jay. That's not the point. That last 3-game skid, come on, man. That last 3-game skid is slate is the better word. That last 3-game slate, that's gonna be tough on them. You got TCU on the road, Iowa State on the road, and then Texas Tech as well. And they're all gonna be pumped to play you as well.
I'll give you Iowa State. But TCU's losing a lot.
Yeah.
TCU's kind of in the boat that in a way that we were last season in losing a lot of their contributors going pro. They've got a lot of refreshing to do, and I'm not sold on anybody refreshing that fast after such a quick ascension, I guess you could say. But you're right.
One of the biggest problems with TCU, in my opinion, is the fact that they won't have all those super seniors out there this year. And
Oklahoma State, remember that last year, 2 years ago, they had like a top 5 defense in the country, and then all of a sudden it fizzled. Super seniors.
I like Chandler Morris an awful lot, but at the same time, we got to see does he actually have durability issues, or is he there? But enough about
talking about Chandler Morris with TCU. Obviously, we don't know that TCU is going to be the same TCU that squeaked by all the games.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's a beautiful point as well. But I'll say this right here. I know it's your show, Jason. Let's get to the business, man. Forget all these other teams. Let's get to the business. Let's get to
the business. We got to. We got to talk about everybody else's words, man.
First of all, Chris, it is my damn show. All right?
Let's get to the business. Boys, look. OU has a hell of a schedule this year. And the reason why I say this is because the stars align on this schedule. You get through SMU is honestly, you know what? I'll say this right here. It's a toss-up between SMU and Tulsa being our toughest non-conference game this year. And the reason why I say that is simply because SMU just lost Tanner Mordecai, so I don't know what they have at quarterback. And then going to Tulsa, I'm not going to say they're going to be terrible, but at the same time, Kevin Wilson is going to try to get that program back on track. And I think Kevin Wilson is a good offensive coordinator, so I give him respect for what he's been able to do here, Ohio State, and some of the other runs. He has some success down there in Indiana.
I respect him as a coach, Chris, but I'm just saying, I mean, this is, with when they pulled this Georgia game from the schedule because of the SEC move that's probably coming up, you had to know that this was going to be Cupcakeville. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and with SMU probably being the toughest one, but we don't know what they got at quarterback at this point.
Yeah.
Look, Tulsa, the only thing about Tulsa is with Kevin Wilson coming, you got to remember who he worked with when he was at Oklahoma, Brent Venables. So he has a really good idea of what Kevin Wilson's going to do offensively when he saw him in practice for years. So I have zero fear in Tulsa. No. SMU is interesting, but that's the thing. That's kind of like my point, Chris. We leave the state 3 times this year. Like we're literally just driving on a bus up the street, around the corner in preparation for these games. We've got a lot more extra time to prepare than we would if we were traveling, like we're going up to Lawrence or traveling to Florida or something like that, or West Virginia, in the brisking cold. I don't think it's going to even be that bad when we get up to Provo, because if I'm correct, they don't get a bunch of snow in actual Provo. I think it's around it. Now, I could be wrong, because, it's a great ski area. But, yeah, it's going to be like us when we used to go to Colorado. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be old school. It's going to have that old school feel to it, which I'm excited about.
The old Big 12, that ain't bad.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thought, really, honestly. I know Provo's a tough place to play. The last time I was out there, I was telling you off air, I went with a buddy of mine in Vegas that he was a big Texas fan and watched Taysom Hill beat the brakes off of Texas. So, I mean, beat the brakes off of Texas in that third quarter.
Oh my God, Taysom was absurd.
Taysom was, but it was fun to watch. And I laughed the whole time, but and it gets wild in there. That's one thing about playing at altitude. You are, as Jimmy just said, perfect timing there, Jimmy. You are playing at altitude. You do have a ruckus crowd in there. Those Mormons may not say cuss words, but they do go crazy. They do go crazy for their Cougars, and it's a tough place to play, tough environment. I think that's definitely going to be one of those games that, particularly coming down in the stretch for Oklahoma, you've got to go the last, those are the last two on the road. The last one's at home, but you've got BYU on the road, and then you got to close out with the defending conference champion. I think it's obviously I think the schedule sets up good early. I think you've got your tough moments, but to be honest with you, if Oklahoma does what they should do,
no,
I mean, you don't see a ton of losses in here. You know what I mean?
That's what this year is all about. This season here, on paper, before we even play one snap of football, when I saw the schedule, I said to myself, I said, you know what? This schedule is all about if OU will beats themselves or not. If OU goes out there and plays disciplined football, cleans up the mistakes that you saw last year, there will be a lot more. The winning will come, like Venables said. It depends on OU getting out of their own way, because the thing is that the first 3 to 4 games are all honestly, the first 4 games of your season are teams that are having to come off of new coaching staffs, significant losses at key positions on and off the field, and you just have to basically go out there and do what you need to do. These are games that you should go out there and you should dominate and win by at least 2 touchdowns, to be quite frank with you. You have the talent, you have the experience now with some of these players. A lot of these players are having the snap counts and all the rest of the stuff. They're playing now. Okay. One of the biggest things that you have to make sure is that you have somebody that can, for better or for worse, replace Agüebu right there in the middle as well, alongside Stutzman. But like I said, man, the biggest thing is you can't beat yourself. You are able to go. I think one of the toughest games that we have on our schedule is at Kansas. I think Kansas is going to be better. I think Texas will be somewhat of a tough game. Iowa State at home is key. West Virginia at home this year is key. I mean, my God, if we can just stop Green, it will be okay with that whole QB run game that they wanted to have. But like I said, this schedule is favorable towards us. And like Jay said, I mean, that's a big point. The time that you have to rest and to be in familiar settings, not having to travel all that much. You're traveling to Tulsa and you're traveling to Stillwater. You're traveling to Lawrence. Those are not really lengthy trips. Pretty much the only lengthy trips that you have are to Cincinnati and to
Provo.
To Provo. And the one thing about traveling to Cincinnati in September, that's really good because it's not going to be cold outside. It's not going to be snowing. It's going to be crystal clear.
Football weather.
That's right.
And that's kind of the big. That's one of the. That's a big difference. The fact that you get UCF and all those teams like that at home as well. It's just a game within a game, because I could point out several games to you where SMU, BYU, and especially UCF on the Gus Malzahn, it's going to be more of a gadget play system. They're really gadgety teams as far as what their play calling is, in my opinion. So, like I said, are you going to fall for the tricks like you did this year? You going to fall for the pre-snap motion stuff like you did last year, man? You just got to get out of your way.
This is where, and that's where I said this is where you're hoping that they have made a big jump as far as learning the scheme better, being more disciplined in what they're doing. Obviously, you've added talent to this roster. You would hope that they're going to add pressure to the quarterback and do. Look, if you assume that the offense is going to be anywhere close to what it was a year ago or better, right? You don't really have to have this defense as a top 20 defense. You need it to be top 50. And that gets you 10 wins. Am I right? Well, I mean,
you're right. You're right. Because I mean, we lost 5 games with a point, one score game basically. So 5 one-score games we lost. So if your defense is just a little bit better, that flips quickly,
123
easily.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, like you said, top 70, we would have gotten that, and so I think this defense will change that. And kind of like Chris made mention of, we got to replace Agwebu, and to be honest, I don't think that's going to be a problem because I think he was out of position anyway. He's playing linebacker and he's really an edge, and he's going to Houston to play edge, and so we don't see him this year on the schedule, so. That's not our problem, but he's going to probably be a little bit of a one for like a Texas or something. Well, Texas has got Houston, so maybe a problem for them. But outside of that, that's not too big of an issue. And so kind of want to talk what, who's it? I think Jimmy made mention of this going to the altitude or whatnot. That's the great part of having Schmitty. Schmitty's going to prepare them for that. They'll be prepared for altitude. They will be in probably some of the best shape of their lives going into that because a lot of the players that will play this coming season have been in his system for about a year. And I've said this so many times. If you've worked out or exercised or got onto a plan, it takes you about a year for your body to fully adjust. And once that year hits, your body, it's like a switch just turns on and everything gets a lot easier and more natural for you. It takes time. And so they're going to be in that system. I think they'll be prepared for Provo. That's going to be a fun game. But outside of that, I mean, those two trips probably be tough. And I like what Jen said, 10-2. That's kind of what I'm thinking this year. I don't want to, throw too much hyperbole out there and say we'll go undefeated. But if the defense does show up top 50, there's a chance we could do that. We've got all the tools for it.
Listen, as long as everything stays together, obviously. But I think that there's definitely some stumbling blocks. Obviously, you've got you're talking 10-2. I would identify obviously UCF as a one of those opportunities to lose a game there. This is Gus Malzahn is not a BS coach, and this is his third season now at UCF. He's starting to kind of get it kind of running a little bit. I would say the BYU game, that's going to be a tough one on there, and then obviously your Texas game is always coming off of the bad loss this past season, you don't expect that again, but you can't, you're not going to necessarily say, hey, yeah, I guarantee we win that game. Right. So yeah, do I see 10-2? Possibly. I could also see 9-3, and I would be okay at 8-4, but that's about as low as it's got with this schedule. I would rather see 9 wins at least, kind of going in with it. Right.
I'll jump in. Yeah, no, for sure. I'll jump in and say that, as far as BYU is kind of a hit or miss team, but BYU also strikes me as the.
I think it's the best of the 4.
I'm gonna give you a loose comparison. They are Baylor 2 years ago. What I mean by that is that if you look at their schedule, top you have where they have West Virginia and Iowa State at home, right? So they can go to West Virginia and win, then come back and lose by 12, 14 points to Iowa State. And I promise to God that crowd will still be rocking whenever OU hits, whenever OU actually, comes there to Provo. So it's one of those things where you have to go up there and you have to put a team like that out. You guys know how it is. Look, Levy is going to be key in a lot of these road games and these new atmospheres, especially when these teams are going crazy. The Cincinnati crowd, the hell, even the Tulsa crowd. You know what I'm saying? But my whole thing is Levy plays a big deal in that, because the thing about it is what is their progression in his play calling on the passing side, and is Dylan Gabriel, is he what we all expected him to be coming from UCF? We didn't really see that. It was really inconsistent at times for Dylan Gabriel. But if those two are on the same page and doing what they need to do, I mean, we have the talent. I feel like we're going to have guys step up in that wide receiver room. And then also one of the luxuries that we do have is Barnes and Sawchuk. And then, like I said, either Hicks.
That running game was so important a year ago.
Hicks, Smothers, even Marcus Major, somebody's going to have to pop up in that room.
Neither one of those two are really going to pop up. I think Hicks and Smothers will probably end up getting that red shirt, but you got to remember we got Emeka Megwa. We still got Tyree Walker. The running back room is deep. That's the one thing I'm not concerned with, but you're right. And I think kind of point out, like Jen mentioned about Dylan Gabriel and him maturing. I'm going to be honest. I kind of think that Lebby held Gabriel back on purpose, and this is why. We had no backup quarterback. And it was more so because whenever he did the recruiting, and like we had Jackson Dart here, we had a few others that was potentially going to transfer here, it was more of a, I'm not going to do a competition. Gabriel's a starting quarterback. If you want to come, you could be his backup, or
Which
you know,
was the
if you
worst
just
thing they could have
if you
done.
light us up, then we'll give you a chance. Which was the worst thing because it left you with no depth.
That's right.
And so you had Gabriel playing, you kind of protect him from himself. Because I mean, if you see the dude run, dude can scoot. He went 60-something yards against Nebraska, and I was like, dude, why aren't we using him more for that? But you understood why. Because as soon as he got leveled against TCU, what happened? We were toast for a game and a half. So I think that now is not going to be the problem because either General Booty's going to understand the offense better and is going to play more because we're not going to play Bevel. Or they're like, look, Jackson Arnold's here. Screw it. If DG gets hurt, Jackson walks into the game and we're just going to move forward. So I'm not stressed about how DG's going to look. I think he's going to look a lot better. It was a guy tweeted me that, and I thought that was probably the greatest point ever, that we'll probably see more RPO and more movement by Gabriel just because we have competence behind him. Because remember, Jackson Arnold runs the exact same offense in high school, except for with a different terminology. So that means that he could walk in there and instantly know our entire set up, what routes the receiver is going to run, because Denton Guyer ran that exact same offense. I'm more confident in DG this year now because of that.
Well, and even looking at him at the end of the season, I mean, look, you close out the season with 2 big games. I know they lost them, but you put up, 48 points against Texas Tech on the road. Then you go to the bowl game, and I mean, he had another good game there. Look, he was trending in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. He was trending in the right direction. You've got some new weapons for him, but overall looking at, and then when you start thinking about, I'm thinking about the fact that you are going to have the tight end coming back, man. Why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? But
Austin Stogner.
Austin Stogner. I mean, this guy is a big time target. He was, as well as Braden Willis played this past season. I like Stogner coming back. That's going to be big for him to be able to hit some of those over the middle throws. Settling down. And I think that, you don't try to keep him in the pocket and keep him from running anymore, like what you were saying, because you don't need to. And from what we're hearing out of this early part of this, spring stuff, what are you hearing about Jackson anyway? I'm hearing he's looking very, very good. So, chances are, that I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to try to start him right away because I think that would be silly. That being said, I don't know that they're too concerned about it.
Right.
If anything, I mean, you can go ahead and put the playbook out there and go ahead and do what you do, because if you get, the kid to come in at some point, then that's what you do, and maybe if Dylan doesn't look as good, I would think, and they start getting shaky, without an injury, they could try the kid. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you?
First
no, you
off,
good point.
I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, Jay, simply because I think just from a mechanical view, a mechanical aspect of his game, I think that some of his mechanics were off. I mean, just go back to countless replays on Gabriel and just look at him like he just had bad mechanics, especially to start the year. And I don't necessarily put that on the fact that Lebby, that it had a lot to do with Lebby. I mean, the thing about it is this right here. Guys were running down the field wide open, and he would stare them down, and there were a lot of coverage sacks. There's a lot of different things that Gabriel was doing early on.
He needed to get rid of the football, no doubt.
Yeah, he needs to get. And I think also, I mean, I was there at that K-State game, and to see some of the bad throws that he missed Stoops on a couple of clutch possessions. I'm just gonna say he missed Stoops on a couple of clutch possessions. I was just like, man, it's a simple out route,
bruh. He had 491 total yards in that damn game.
But I mean, look.
Stop it.
He did. Hell, I'm gonna defend Chris on this, and he's right, because there were some mechanical things and there was some issues that Dylan Gabriel had in some place. But this was what somebody else told me that actually watched a lot of the All 22 and watched some of the details on it. Is that our wide receivers were not running the right routes. A lot of the times and a lot of those missed throws, the receiver were not what it's supposed to be because it's a lot of timing routes. That entire offense, I remember Joel Klatt was talking about the way Levy's system is compared to the way Lincoln Riley's is that there's a lot more timing routes and a lot more decisions about a quarterback based upon the defensive set. So it's a ratio thing. And our wide receivers were not running good routes. Plus, you watched our wide receivers drop, at least 6 touchdowns? Like, 6 wide open, deep touchdowns. They just dropped
drops.
That would have been over. I mean, the games would have been over, blown off the top. If
there's probably 3 wins at least in some of the
right.
Think about
it. In the hand. So, Chris, you're right. No, I don't think Dylan Gabriel was perfect at all. By any means. I think he's a really good quarterback that still requires a good defense behind him.
Yeah.
While at the same time, I think he's good enough to be a college football quarterback that just needs his receivers to get to the right spots. And I think that was our biggest problem. I think Theo Weiss and them, they just weren't. They weren't able
lot of
to
drops,
really
man.
do. There was a lot of inconsistency on the wide receiver side
too. Sit here, and I know everybody likes to think that I just back up DG all day long. What I'm going to say is this: when you are giving up 40 a game and you're 123 in the country, you needed to be perfect, and he wasn't perfect. But I also want everybody to try to remember that this was not Lincoln Riley's offense, number one, and he is not Caleb Williams.
Quarterbacks. Yes, we don't have. He's not a world beater. But he's not a world beater. That's not his job.
And he's not that guy. But what I would say is that if you just go in there and you have a top 75 defense, period, they probably win 9 games. Right?
Yes.
And I mean, come on. So
counterpoint.
I guess we can nitpick the hell out of this guy. We could nitpick the hell out of him and forget the fact that they were also learning a new system. You know, and still went out there and they were number 13 in the country. So
exactly,
you know,
counterpoint.
I have a. Go ahead.
I got a counterpoint to that. If there's anything that I could compare somebody to Dylan Gabriel to is, I think he's a better version of AJ McCarron who was missing a defense. Because there was one thing you pointed out, Chris, at one of the games. You kept pointing out how the receivers weren't blocking very well downfield, but when they blocked well downfield, we started getting a whole bunch of runs.
Yeah.
So it was so much inconsistency at that spot. I think that hurt Dylan Gabriel more than his actual play. You see what I'm saying? And I only say that because there were 6 touchdowns freaking dropped. I mean, walking in the end zone just.
Right. Well, Jimmy, I hope that the receiver coach can help them, but you got to just catch the damn football. I'm sorry.
All,
when it hits your damn hands, you got to catch the ball. That don't have nothing to do with the receiver coach. That don't have nothing to do with nobody. That has to do with you not looking it in and grabbing it. And yes, Jen, we know he's not Heisman. He's honestly though, I mean, he wasn't that far out of it for a while until they went off and started losing a bunch of games. And again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's Caleb Williams or any of these top level guys. What I'm going to tell you is that you don't need that. You didn't need that. You shouldn't need that. Well, hopefully, when you have Brent Venables and you've got some of these guys that are coming in, because I'm looking at some of these dudes like that are going to start. I feel like some of these PJ Adebawari is going to start. There's no 2 ways around that. He's because you got to get pressure on this quarterback. On these quarterbacks, that was a big problem.
All right, here's another point. Go ahead. Shout out to my uncle. He just gave me a point, but this is something else that we got.
Your uncle, man, get him on the show, bro.
No, y'all don't want that. But what I was gonna say is clock management, man. That was another thing that really.
Chris, what did I complain about all the time?
Are you gonna?
Jay complaining about it all the time. Hey, clock management.
What did I complain about all the time?
Fellas, though, are you gonna put that one on DG all the time though?
No, I'm not saying that's on Levy. That's Levy. That's right. Levy. It was like, hey man, look, I get it. This offense is a Ferrari, but it's not moving like that today. I think it's moving like a 95 Ford would have been right. I'm just saying, like,
look though, and I agree with you on a lot of that stuff. And all I'm getting at is that it's hard to. I mean, they needed to be perfect in order for them to do. And they literally still lost 4 games by 3 points, another one by 7.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, good grief. I mean, what do you do? what do you do? You know, and
Brent Venables said this when he first came in, and a lot of people glossed over it. He said two things. One, you got to give me 3 years.
Yeah,
maybe 2. The second thing he said, we're ripping this to the studs. Most people didn't pay attention to him saying that in his
everybody
pressers.
was drinking that Kool-Aid too quick, boy.
Well, that's the thing. Exactly. Everybody thinking that the house was going to be built within a month and a half instead of 9 months. That's the problem. It's like, hey, no, we're ripping this to the studs. Like we're adding up new sheetrock. We're starting from scratch. And when he said that, I was like, okay, I think you could turn around faster. But then when I started watching the games, I'm like, oh, this is what you mean. Like we're not ready at all.
No, and here's the thing. I feel like that's a big part of it. This is a different staff than what these kids that were with Lincoln too were used to. The way that things were done, the urgency with which things were done, the technical parts of and offensively included, right? There was a lot of things. They're not the same, you know. And these coaches, these coaching staffs don't handle things the same. Period. You know, you got one that's laid back and you got one that's in your grill. And you know what I mean? It's just, that's fine. And discipline and everything else. And sometimes, you know how that is, man. Discipline is the hardest thing for anyone to learn at anything. When you've got habits.
Accountability for sure.
That's right. I mean, you played college sports, Chris. Think about it. You've went through coaching changes, have you not?
Yeah.
And what did it do? What did it do? What did it do to your team going through that? Sometimes it can be great. Sometimes it can be really hard.
Yeah. No.
And luckily, Venables is a player's coach. You know, players love him and adore him.
That's the thing.
So,
Players. I mean,
they ain't hard on them though.
Because like I said, man, I think one of the biggest things that we overestimated was the talent that we had. You know, we fell in love with some of the stars. And what I mean by that is just the star system, the star ratings. We fell in love with the rankings that we had on campus from Lincoln's, you know, past regime. And
I've said a bunch of times, man, show me the guys that were these high level talent guys that were here last year. I want to see them. Tell me who they were.
I mean, that was the whole thing. It's just like, you know, last year coming into the season, I was huge. I said, hey man, I think Stripling is the guy to look for on defense. I think Clayton Smith is going to be able to etch out a spot on that team. I mean, you know, you come in there with high hopes for like Josh Eaton. Josh Eaton had I thought he had a decent spring game, really good spring game.
Really good spring game.
Yeah.
Venables raved about him, raved about his hard work.
Just some, yeah. They just don't fit what you're trying to do here. But I mean, that's kind of the thing, is that's what you're wanting to see, that next step from a whole bunch of guys. I mean, I think right now, you know, I think the joke or the knock on OU offensively is going to be, what does their wide receiver core look like? You know, what does that look like without Marvin Mims? Do you not have a true number one now? I think Farouk steps into that spot.
I do too.
Drake Stoops is going to be Drake Stoops, but I think that you need Drake to actually be like your 3 or 4 at times. You need those other guys to step up. You got the transfer from Michigan,
Andrell Anthony,
Jaden Gibson. I mean, hey, if you want to play, it's your turn out there. I think that you have some guys that are probably going to poke their heads out. I mean, obviously Petaway, Keon Brown. I think those are guys as well who could come in and contribute.
Hey, man. They should be able to. Those kids, if you look at their film, they are off the charts good, especially at taking the top off kind of stuff. And Keon Brown is a stud athlete, straight stud.
Let me ask you guys just real quick, a side note question.
Florida kids, boy.
Thoughts about DJ Graham this year going and making a transition to wide receiver? You hear a lot of great things about him, but what do you guys?
I heard, and if I'm correct, he had a higher star rating at wide receiver than he did defense, and converted. Now I could be wrong. The reporting could have been wrong on that part, but I heard he's really good at wide receiver. And then the fact he made that interception against Nebraska, I'm stoked to see him actually catching balls. So having him and Farouk basically kind of anchor your wide receiver room, and then get Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson, in which both of them have already said they want to be the best duo in college football.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have a chance this year. Like Gibson had one throw in the beginning of the season that basically was sitting in his hands, and he dropped it, and I think at that point he ended up in the doghouse, and we didn't see him anymore.
Yeah.
That's going to be the game changer. I think those two are the ones that's going to make the biggest difference at the wide receiver, period. And then you'll have Gavin Freeman to be the next Drake Stoops. Him and Stoops are going to be problems just moving around. I mean, hell, Gavin touched the ball his first time in college football and ran it over a dude and ran for a touchdown. You just need to get these guys in open space. And I'm really hoping that we leverage Farouk more in a Peter Ward type role. Let that dude go. When we start letting him catch punts, he was breaking it off. I want more of that.
I think that Jalil Farouk is about to have a big season. I think he's about to have a big season.
No excuse if he doesn't. No excuse.
No, there isn't. And the thing is one thing about, Levy, he's not, you're either going to get in there and perform, or he's not going to put you in the game. I mean, that's really what happened with Theo last year. He started looking good towards the end of the season, but he was in Levy's doghouse for a very good part of the year because he wasn't performing in practice. And what he keeps saying, now, when he shows it to us in practice, then he'll get in the game, not in sim. And so, and as much as I love Theo Weiss, I mean, but I just feel like it was one of them deals where he kind of, he just
tapered off. I mean,
he did.
That was the thing. That 3-star, that 5-star trio that we got, man, it's just crazy to think what could have possibly happened. But I do.
But when you do things different, it's different for these guys too. They came into a system running it like Lincoln, and it's not, as much as it may look like it sometimes, this is not the same thing.
No, it's not.
Remember JJ Hester's out there too. He's a 6'4" wide receiver that was transferred from Missouri, as well as LV Buckley. That was mentioned by James a minute ago. I remember we got those two also. I do think that Nick Anderson as well as Gibson get some game. I think they rotate in and start to work on them becoming the new anchors in the future. But adding Farouk with Buckley, Shelton, as well as JJ Hester, there's no excuse for us to not. We got huge wide receivers. Period. Right. They're huge, 6'2" plus, just about all of them.
Hey man, that's what you need.
Yeah, one of the things that I think there's two things that we need to like really put heavy emphasis on is one, the run game. Again, I think Barnes and Sawchuk are going to be able to get the job done. If Marcus Majors can stay healthy, I think that's really your three-headed monster right there.
That's right.
And I think that at some point Sawchuk probably takes those snaps.
I kind of feel like Sawchuk and Barnes are both. They're the guys. And
they're locked.
You're gonna, and I feel like Majors is. I don't know. I think we may have seen the end of him.
Yeah, I think Meg would take his spot.
That's the thing is that we got to wait till the spring, because when the spring game, that's going to be an interesting time for us.
What are these freshmen going to do? I mean, you brought in two unbelievably good freshmen, running backs that. I mean, they're gonna. These are guys that you may need to get them some time to keep them.
Yeah.
You're going to hear this from me, though. You'll hear me keep saying this over and over. Mecca Megwa was a 4-star running back out of Texas before he tore his ACL and didn't even really play at Washington. He's healthy, and he's here.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6'2", and he's probably bigger now. I mean, he could be a stout back he might take Major's spot. I hate to say it. We'll see. And he's only 19. He's a sophomore, so he's young.
Yeah, but listen, once you go through one of those injuries, when you go through those injuries, you just don't know how they're going to respond.
I know who my two guys are, but we'll see what's going to happen. But the second part that I would say, Levy loves those heavy personnel packages. So, who is going to emerge as tight end 2? Is Llewellyn, or how you say?
I think Llewellyn's hurt. I think he broke his foot or something like that.
But like coming back, I'm like, is he going to actually still be the blocker, or is he going to be a guy that's out there actually catching passes? Obviously, I think everybody in here, even in the chat, wants Caden Helms to be that guy who steps up and becomes that guy. And I think that he could play off a guy like Stogner as well because he's more versatile. Like I said, he's a Grant Calcaterra in my opinion. Just taller and with more
I
length.
like that. I like that.
I think that he has that potential to be that good. We just have to see it. I mean, and that's the thing.
Right.
Is his blocking at an adequate level to where he can actually get out there on the field and be able to, be a honestly just a versatile tight end.
Folks,
Blake Smith,
real quick, guys. If folks wanted to thank everybody for coming in here once again. If hit that like button, make sure that you're hitting that like button. It's important for us to get out there to everybody. If you're not already a subscriber to the show, please do that and make sure that you get over there and subscribe to the Horns Down podcast and at Unfair Sports as well. These guys are two of the best that do it, period, out there. That's why I love having them on the show. Coach is out today. He had his grandson's basketball game, so he isn't here tonight, but he's I definitely enjoyed having you guys in. Now, so make sure hit that like button and go over there and subscribe if you hadn't already, man. But thanks a lot, everybody, for being in here. Real quick, guys, looking at this, give me a prediction. I mean, we talked 10-2. I'm looking at around 9-3. What would you predict here? And then let's talk this Texas schedule too. Give me a prediction, Chris, for Oklahoma, and then you do the same there, Jay.
I want to say 10-2.
Okay. All right.
And I'm gonna say the two toughest games on the schedule. I think there's three actually. No, I'll say there's four. I think the four toughest games I think will be TCU, BYU. This is gonna be funny, but I'm gonna say it. I think Kansas.
Oh, that's not funny. I agree.
I also think Texas will be a bit of a dicey game to start. If we just need to make it to the second half because we know how that goes for Texas. So
sure,
and keep a healthy quarterback too. So
we got depth for a change.
We got a shot.
We got depth for a change. I'll say that. I'm kind of with who's it? Sean. I'm with Sean B. What's good, man?
Hanky.
On the I'd be satisfied with 9-3, but I'm kind of at Hank. I think that's gonna be 11-1, and to be honest, I think that loss is probably gonna be BYU on the road. And this is why I say that. Cincinnati is still in kind of turmoil. They lost Luke Fickell, and they started losing recruits right afterwards.
Yes,
players
they did.
Transferring out. So they're still trying to figure it out with their new
McCullough
coach.
because of that.
Right. We got Day and Deshaun. Exactly. And I don't know what their transfer portal looks like. I got to go dig into them. So if I'm going to early reaction, I think we beat them. I think we beat UCF, even though they're a solid team with Gus Malzahn. He's a really good coach. The Kansas game is going to be tough, but I think traveling to BYU will probably, if there's a game we lose, it'll either be traveling to BYU or it'll probably be UCF coming to the house. I think it'd be one of the other teams that would beat us this time around, mainly because we ain't playing K-State this year.
And that was one of the next points that I wanted to make. And we're going to get into this we're going to get into that in just a second. So before we go too crazy with that. All right. So I'm kind of with you on that. I can see 10-2. I'm going to go with 9-3. I feel like if you're probably still looking at some stomach, you still got a young football team. I think that, aside from your quarterback, I think that, expecting them to go 11-1's could I see it? Sure. But a lot of things are going to have to fall in place for that to happen. Now, the losses that I would see was if you were going to have, looking at probably the BYU, I would agree with you on that. Kansas, UCF, those would probably be the three. And then, we'll see what's up with TCU. I don't really
know. I give Texas respect too.
And I think that you could get a bad hangover from what just happened to you in that national title game. I'm sorry. But that's shell shocking for real. So you know what I mean? I don't know that they recover that well from that. I think that they kind of slid by some games, man. I just do.
One of the biggest things to remember as well is that with I don't think Kendall Browse necessarily scares anybody.
No, well,
No. And Joe Klatt said this when he was talking about Oklahoma compared to like a TCU, saying that we could be the TCU next season, that TCU won 5 games at one score possessions.
Right. And we
so basically the same. We were the opposite. So we were the opposite. It's like it was a complete flip. So them getting out the skin of their teeth.
Say what would have happened
replace them
in the TCU game if DG doesn't go down right there. You know,
right? We could eventually came back, maybe.
I don't know. It was pretty bad already, but it was
the super seniors helped them a lot, though. That's the big thing, and they don't have that. Experience is key.
Look, I'm a Sonny Dykes fan. I don't have a problem with him at all. I think that they had a great season. I think that they, like Coach has said a few times on here, that they got a couple of lucky breaks here and there. They took advantage of them, and then you kind of get on a roll, and you believe that you can do it all year. I mean, they even did it against Michigan. Now, as soon as it fell apart just as quick as it came together in the Georgia game. But I don't see them. You got to back that one up. And I think that's a hard thing to do when you just got skull drug in the national title game, in front of God and everybody. So, it's just one of them deals where that's a tough one.